In this video, I'll be breaking down the topics that everybody interested in SaaS needs to be aware of, whether you're building it yourself or hiring a team to do it on your behalf. I built several projects and these are the things that I've noticed across all of them. So without any further ado, let's go ahead and get into the video. I broke the process of building a SaaS into 7 different areas that you'll need good knowledge of in order to be successful. You don't have to go through and research all of these areas in depth before you start. Just a basic knowledge of why they're important should be enough for you to get started, and you'll be able to learn the rest on the fly as you're creating a real project. The first area is code. You will need an in-depth knowledge of this particular area before you get started. There are a variety of different options that you can use to build a web app. One of the most popular and the one that I use is a React.js frontend and a Node.js backend. So in order to pull off a web application like this, you'll need a knowledge of JavaScript and HTML, because that's what React.js is basically a combination of. As far as JavaScript goes, you'll just need to have a basic knowledge of how coding in JavaScript works. Things like loops, operators, different types, what asynchronous functions are, things like that. For React.js in particular, you'll need to understand concepts like hooks, states, context, things like that. You'll also need to understand HTML for React.js. So just things like what's a div, what's a p, what's an a tag. And once you have a basic knowledge of JavaScript, of React.js, Node.js, then you're ready to go ahead and start building out your project. When you build your project, you'll need to pick a framework. A framework is basically how your web app will be assembled. So you can use Next.js, Vue.js. There's a variety of different options. The only two that I've used are Next and Vite. As far as learning Next, there are things I had to pick up like server-side versus client-side components and how they vary in how they execute logic depending on whether it's a server component or a client component. The file structure is also an important part of the project. So you'll just need to learn the specifics that come with each framework in order to be successful. Quick reminder, if you're looking for a software development agency to handle the process of building your SaaS for you, then book a call below using the Calendly link. And if you're looking for some extra help and guidance building your own SaaS project, then join the Discord where you can join the community and ask me questions if you have any. Now let's get back to the video. Next, we have the database. Typically, no matter what type of SaaS you build, you'll need a database of some type. Luckily, it doesn't really matter which one you use. There are pros and cons for each different option, but typically you can make anything work. There are different options. You could use MongoDB, you could use Supabase, you could use Firebase. The important thing is understanding how to use that particular database, how to make queries, how to add data, and basically how to incorporate it into your project, whether that be models or classes of different objects that you are storing in your database. Next, we have styling. Styling is a very important thing, especially if you have some sort of B2C software. Styling would be very important, but even if you have B2B, it's important that your application looks good, it looks professional, it looks presentable. So you'll spend a good amount of time fiddling around with the CSS. I typically use Tailwind. Well, I only use Tailwind, but Tailwind still involves having a good knowledge of different CSS concepts. It's also 2025 at the time of this recording, so you'll typically want to make your application responsive because people are definitely using their phone, but there are also a good amount of people on PCs or laptops, computers. So you'll just want everybody to be able to use your application, and you'll want to have a responsive design. Next are APIs. You don't always need to use the API. Sometimes you could use entirely server actions on your project. but typically you'll need to use APIs. So it's important that you understand how API routes work, the different functions as far as get, post, put, delete, the basic HTTP methods, and also things like middleware that happen while your API is executing logic and handling calls. So a solid knowledge of APIs as far as inside of your project is typically required. Outside of your project, you'll also have to use external APIs, whether that be Stripe to accept payments, resend to send emails. There are numerous different other APIs that you might have to interact with. So it's important to be comfortable and understand how to handle data, make calls to these different APIs, handling things like a access token, a refresh token, just stuff like that. You need to be moderately proficient at operating any type of API in order to get what you need for your project. Lastly, we have deployment. It's important to understand how a server works, how your code is hosted, how your project is handling HTTP requests, how your project is being served across the internet. And it's important to understand the different options that you have. AWS, Vercel, NetSuite, there's numerous more, but it's important to understand the trade-offs as far as ease of using them versus cost. And it's also important to understand things like lint and ES errors when you're deploying your project to a server. These are the main 7 things. Once again, you don't need to be a master going in, but you need to understand all 7, have some basic knowledge, and understand why they're important. One last reminder, if you are interested in having a development agency handle your software building process for you, then book a call below. And if you're interested in getting some help and guidance, join the Discord link below.